What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and this video is going to be a big what if, and there's a good reason for that, which we'll get into in a little bit. But what I'm here to do in this video is I'm going to drop some knowledge bombs on you, okay? And there's going to be several reasons for this, but the main one goes back to the what if, essentially. And we have to ask one other question to get to the important parts of that. That's a common question that you will get, but that basically almost everyone will get in their entire life at some point. And that question is, what is the greatest game of all time? Now, there's many answers to these questions. Usually, it's something along the lines of Super Mario Brothers. Maybe it's Super Mario Brothers 3. Maybe it's Super Mario World. It could be Chrono Trigger. It could be Super Castlevania 4. It could be Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 9, Suikoden, whatever. There's so many different answers to this game. Answers to this question, I should say. Now, here's where my first knowledge bomb comes in. All those answers are wrong. For the simple reason is Secret of Mana is the best game ever made, hands down. Fact. 100% of people who run this channel agree that that is the best game ever. That's all I can say. Now, don't try fact check me, because you will come out and find out that it is actually accurate. That 100% of the people who run this channel agree. And therefore, the facts say it all. The facts say it all. Anyway, back to the actual point. So, Secret of Mana is, if you haven't guessed already, my favorite game of all time. And I absolutely love everything about it. But there's some little bits of interesting knowledge that some people may not know about Secret of Mana. Now, originally, I shouldn't say originally, but Secret of Mana almost never got released. Yep, that's true. So the game that probably many of you know and love, and for some reason don't regard as the best game ever, but obviously that's going to change. Yeah, it almost originally never got released, for the simple reason is Secret of Mana was originally being designed and developed with a higher capacity experience in mind. Now, the reason for that is because it was originally being developed for the prototype, what was at the time in prototype stages, for the Super Famicom CD attachment, illustrated right here. And that was an attachment that was going to be a joint venture between Nintendo and Sony, and would add CD capabilities to the Super Nintendo. So the Super Nintendo obviously used cartridges, and because of that, there was a couple of limitations through cartridges. But CDs could overcome that, such as much better, higher quality audio and full motion video, as well as being several times larger in storage capacity than an actual cartridge. For example, the general consensus on the size of the cartridges for the Super Nintendo were 117.75 megabit. I can't remember if it's megabyte or megabit, but that was always very confusing for me when I see the abbreviations. But that's generally 5.9 times smaller than your average CD. So your average CD can be about 700 megabytes. I realize they can go to like 650 or 800, but your average CD-ROM will be 700 megabytes. So you're looking at a 5.9 increase, 5.9 times increase of potential storage capacity. So that allows for a much bigger game, much more assets, much more complex things involved in it, because there's physically more storage to put it all on, as well as, like I said, CD quality music and full motion video. Now, because of all that, one other thing I will say actually as well, that I'm not 100% on this. I could never find definitive info, but I have found a lot of things that reference the two largest Super Nintendo games, which were Star Ocean and Tales of Fantasia. They are referenced to be approximately 48 MB. So that's less than half the potential capacity of a cartridge. Now, I say potential because, obviously some of them are going to be smaller because they don't need it. But when you look at even the upper limits of the actual Super Famicom cartridges and Super Nintendo cartridges, they're 5.9 times smaller than a CD. So, because of it was being developed for the CD platform, and once that was cancelled and Sony famously went their own way and created the PlayStation and the rest is history, because of all that, there was so much they had to pare back to fit the game onto something that was basically 1/6 of the size. The game was almost cancelled. And the game was almost cancelled because they literally had to pare back so much and pull so much out of it that they almost didn't consider it a game. Now, imagine a world where Secret of Mana was never made. I don't want to imagine that world. That's a dark, dark place, and I don't wish that on anyone. But anyway, the whole purpose is that the fact it was finally undertaken as a project to pare it back and still release it. Many of the game systems, many of the game mechanics were obviously pared out, and some of them were allegedly appropriated into other games, such as the sequel, the Japanese-only sequel, which is Secret of Mana 2, obviously. And there's such as a day and night cycle. There's a couple of other things as well, but the main one was a day and night cycle. And Chrono Trigger allegedly took some of the actual improvements as well, as I think it was Final Fantasy VI, or if you're American, Final Fantasy III, I believe it is, or it could have been Final Fantasy II, which is Final Fantasy IV, really. But some of the actual systems were implemented into those games in some way, shape, or form. Not all of them, not just none of them, but they did take some of the ideas and possibly modify them and put them into other games. So it did leave a bit of a legacy, not only in the sense of being the greatest game ever made, but it helped out some of the other greatest games ever made. So it's definitely a win-win. But having said all of that, what if, this is the big one now, this is the main meat and veg of the video, the main reason I make this, what if the Super Famicom CD attachment had released properly, and it had released worldwide in Japan, in the American NTSC market, and in the European PAL regions? And what if Secret of Mana was made in its full fat glory, fully taken up a CD, with CD quality audio, full motion video, and probably even a larger, better game? That blows my mind. The fact that the best game in existence could have been better. I don't know how that's possible. Just the fact that it could be possible blows my mind. Because I have put so much time into that game. So I could, with the exception of the dialogue, I can recite that game from memory. And where all the secrets are, all the extra stuff are, where you go, the story, the main plot points, the transition screens. I can even recite the areas. And to think that a game that I hold so high and revere so much could have been better. That's... I don't even have any words for it. What that could have been. And it's such a shame. It's such an unfortunate shame that it didn't turn out the way, it didn't go that way, that these Famicom disc, not the Famicom, the Super Famicom CD attachment never happened, and the game was pared back so much. But because of it, at least we still got the amazing game that is Secret of Mana. You have games like Chrono Trigger and some of the Final Fantasy series, which benefited from some of the systems and mechanics that were taken from Secret of Mana's development time. And that we've just got several great games out of it, and several great series out of it. Well, series, mostly in the Final Fantasy one. I realize there's a sequel to Secret of Mana, as I've already said, and Chrono Cross is kind of a spiritual sequel, if you will. But you get the idea. So, I mean, what do you think we could have expected in it? Would the game have been significantly larger? I'd say it probably would have. When you take a look at the PS1 version in, I think it's Final Fantasy Chronicles, I think it's called. It never came out here in Europe, but I believe it's Final Fantasy Chronicles, and that's the one that bundles, I think it's Final Fantasy 6 and Chrono Trigger. And Chrono Trigger is the improved version with full motion video cutscenes because it's on a CD. So you could imagine Secret of Mana with those types of full motion video, as well as being a bigger and probably better game. That is crazy to me. And the fact that it could have CD quality music. I know I actually have the original CDs of the Secret of Mana soundtrack. I listen to them pretty damn regularly, and to have CD quality music for that game while playing it would have been insane. It would have been, I realize to most people it's kind of a moot point because you still played the game, you loved the music despite the format it was in and all that, but you could imagine how much richer the experience could have possibly been by CD quality music. I would have loved that, and it's just, I really wish that could have happened, and it's such an unfortunate thing that it didn't. But either way, like I said, we still have excellent games with excellent series because of it, so it's not a total loss. And the game did release eventually, so that's pretty damn good. So what else could we have expected? Probably, obviously, a lot more dungeons, a lot more bigger open world areas. Probably the world itself would have been bigger too. It could even potentially have had more than 3 characters. Obviously, you've only got the 3 characters. You've got the boy, the girl, and the sprite. But there could have potentially been more. Maybe not all on screen at once, but you could have maybe swapped them out at certain places, swapped them out at certain inns. Maybe you could have had extra side stories, extra side quests involved for certain characters, or just not at all. But you know, that's a big what if, because that's a whole development team, a whole development cycle, and a question for 20 years ago. It's really unfortunate. I'd love to find out someday. I'd love if there was an interview conducted with someone like Tanaka from Square Enix, and I think he's officially retired at the moment for health reasons, but he was a big player in the development of Secret of Mana, and a lot of the highly revered Super Nintendo games back in the day from around that time from Squaresoft. But I'd love to get an interview, or not get an interview, but I'd love to read an interview or see an interview with someone like him or around his level of involvement with those games, and find out some of the more intricate details and more private details of what was cut, what was originally planned but not able to happen because of the move to the cartridge versus the reduced storage of the cartridge versus the higher capacity CDs that never panned out. So anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you think we could have potentially got in a Secret of Mana CD version for the Super Nintendo. What do you think would have been added in? Do you think, like myself, that there would have been full motion video and better quality music? Do you think that we'd have a significantly larger game, maybe more characters, whatever? And just for an extra little fun fact as well, let's throw in another question too. So what other cartridge-based, I was going to say CD, what other cartridge-based game that released on either the Super Famicom or the Super Nintendo, be it in the US or Europe, and what do you think could have improved with a CD? Like, would you have, say, Final Fantasy 6 with, well, that's Final Fantasy 3 for you Americans, but would you have that with better music? Would you have it with FMVs? Would you have it with bigger game in general? Simply because you have the bigger storage capacity of a CD and the technical benefits for it. So let me know anyway, all that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.